Hello, welcome to Create Campaign's Black Business Roundtable, The Journey Continues. My name is Christina Long, and I am the proud president and CEO of Create Campaign Incorporated, where it's our mission to help activate urban entrepreneurs in Kansas to launch, innovate, and to grow. We want to thank you for joining us for this really special conversation as we continue to look at the landscape for equitable contracting in the Wichita area. As many know, contracting is a way to really build and boost the stability of companies because it presents opportunities for viable and sustained earnings in companies. We continue this conversation from a conversation we started in 2021, where we had invited several guests to look at what is truly the landscape and the opportunity in the Wichita area regarding contracting. This conversation builds on that. And some may find that the continued talking around the topic is one thing, but what are some actions that are happening around supplier diversity? Well, since last year, there's been several really important initiatives that we want to make sure to highlight. We definitely, like I mentioned before, talked about supplier diversity in our Black Business Roundtable that was held in February of 2021. We also participated in quarterly How to Do Business with the City of Wichita, where we invited Chris Hazlett from the City of Wichita to talk about ways to get into the city's vendor system. We had several entrepreneurs take great advantage of those opportunities. We worked with the City of Wichita through the summer looking at software upgrades in their vendor system, which are now live on workwith.wichita.gov. There were meetings that were convened for WBE and DBE steering committee where we were able to sit at tables with the SBA, the city, the county, the school district, and McConnell Air Force. Additionally, there was work held in conversations and convenings with Wichita State University to look at their supplier diversity and to look at their procurement processes. In October, we were able to participate in a panel with McCown Gordon through the Wichita Business Journal, also held in partnership with the Wichita Regional Chamber of Commerce, looking at supplier diversity from a corporate standpoint as well. And then all throughout the year, there were various contractor opportunities for actual vendors to hear from large contracts that are happening and are currently underway in the city of Wichita. Particularly, these informational sessions were held by J.E. Dunn, Burns and McDonnell, and the Kansas Business Services. And then we looked at again in October, what has occurred through the year and what are some best practices across the country in our supplier diversity roundtable that we held in October, where we featured speakers from the Kansas Department of Commerce's Office of Minority and Women Business Development, as well as the state of Indiana. So again, while it's not perfect, progress is being made, thus the journey continues. So before we dive into the conversation today related to the journey continuing, let's just take a moment to level set the playing field again and to understand what's happening around supplier diversity in our area. Per statistics and data provided to us by the City of Wichita in 2020, when we look at purchasing, particularly among African Americans, there's a lot of room for growth. As we advance and look at 2021's numbers, again, the City of Wichita is really looking at this opportunity in front of them to do more business with African American owned businesses and making all contractors aware of the opportunities to move forward and do better. As we swing over to Sedgwick County's purchasing reports, we see particularly among African American owned businesses, the county's doing 0.5% of its spend with African American businesses. And now looking at Wichita Public Schools, this was a surprising fact from Wichita Public Schools. When we look at their purchasing dollars, 25% of its business or its spend is going to African American owned businesses. Now, again, for the purposes of our conversation, we are focusing on African American owned businesses, hence the Black Business Roundtable. Statistics are kept on other demographic groups as well. So we are so pleased to have an esteemed panel joining us in conversation today to put some context around some of the numbers that we just saw, to look at best practices on how to make improvements in this area, and to offer just encouraging perspectives as we continue the journey. Starting us off is Mary Shannon. She is the president and CEO of Kansas Big Brothers Big Sisters. She has spent nearly 25 years in the nonprofit sector in higher education, healthcare, and now at Kansas Big Brothers Big Sisters. Mary loves encouraging people to achieve greatness and specifically encouraging and mentoring women along their journeys of becoming. She's the mother of Ashley and Jordan, and her favorite quote is, "What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others." Mary, thank you so much for joining us. Next up, we have a great friend to the Create campaign, yes, Darrius Wright from Kansas Business Services. Darrius serves as the principal and senior research analysis there with KBS. He has a esteemed and accomplished professional career that spans global faith-based nonprofit organizations, regional small business support nonprofits, local youth intervention nonprofits. He works with federal government, with corporate executive experiences, and he's a serial entrepreneur. He has extensive experience in public and private procurement, successfully performing technical writing and contract management, leading to the acquisition of 600 million plus in contract revenues across various partnerships and organizations. Darrius, thank you for joining us today as well. Moving on with our panel, we do have Mr. Joe Thomas. He is the purchasing director for Sedgwick County. He has spent more than 14 years in public procurement, 31 years in private sector procurement. He has served as the past president of the Kansas Association of Public Purchasing Professionals, and he is currently the president of the Institute for Supply Management's Wichita chapter. Thank you, Joe, for joining us. Rounding out our panel, we have Jonathan Wyss. He is the supply chain director for Wichita Public Schools. He previously served as the purchasing manager for Wichita Public Schools, and he manages both the purchasing and supply teams, which consist of the purchase of inventory of all different kinds of commodities, including but not limited to office and janitorial supplies, technology, food and food service materials, construction services, or other services as needed by the district. John, thanks for joining us today. We're going to start actually with Darrius. And I'd like to ask you, what is the opportunity that you see companies have when they are pursuing and are successful at securing public and or private contracts? We are talking about supplier diversity, but some may not understand the opportunity that exists for them through contracting. Please share.
Absolutely. I think that when you participate as a vendor or a supplier in contracting opportunities, these mean formal contracts between yourself and usually a larger institutional organization. There are three main things I think really help to catapult a business or they receive more value from. The first thing is past performance and experience. You cannot substitute the work experience that you can get from large institutional clients and or partners in terms of learning systems, growing and developing your business, and really just getting a strong reference in terms of the capacity and the capability of your company. It's not to say that the regular consumer or business to business isn't good as well, but these large institutional clients just have a different ring to them when you're trying to grow your business and your marketing. The second thing I think is long-term revenue or capital injections. Most large institutional clients structure their contracts with base and option periods, extended amounts of time. And so what that means is you may have the security of a contract that lasts for multi-years versus a one-off of a job or something like that. So I think that that's very pivotal and something that a lot of companies can gain. And finally, capacity building. Larger clients usually have more complex work, and it begs these owners having to really expand their own bandwidth and their own capacity, learning how to do things either never done or having to improve the things that they've done before in the past. And that's just better overall for their company and for them as an individual. So those are the three things I think that really are the benefits they get from going into contracting.
I appreciate that overview and definitely agree that those benefits are real. They are real and they are lived. And so as we look at encouraging businesses to take risks and to expand through contracting, we have some pretty significant purchasers, pretty significant buyers in our area through the county, through the school district and others. Joe, when you look at Sedgwick County, and the types of materials and commodities that you all purchase. Could you just provide an overview on what are among those most purchased commodities from the county side?
I would say for the commodity side, mostly through public works, we have aggregates, and then with fleet, of course, we have cars and vehicles, parts management. We also have food items because, we have the adult detention facility. And so we have a lot of requirements regards to food service. And then we also, being a big organization, have quite a bit of IT needs that are satisfied by various companies. So, and then we do have a lot of the services like janitorial supplies and services throughout the county courthouse complex. And then right now we're going through a lot of restructuring of the actual building because of the infusion of ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act. And that has allowed such things as court backlogs to be addressed. So that means that a lot of the existing space here in the downtown area is being converted to courts, which means our admin people will be moving out of this space. And so we've had a lot of on-call remodeling services that have been required as well.
That's news. I did not know that. When you're looking at some of the main commodities that the school district purchases, share with us what those are.
Yeah, so similar to Joe, when you think about a school district, you think about office supplies, school supplies, custodial is really huge, but you also think about food. Food is huge in the school environment. We've got 100 different locations, 50,000 students that we're feeding, pretty much every day and multiple times throughout the day with breakfast programs, after school programs, and just your normal lunch. We do a lot of construction work, and then any just basic facility supplies, things like that. So then IT, of course, as well. I don't want to leave that out. That is a huge purchase that we make each year.
I appreciate that. When you look then at some of those commodity codes, part of perhaps the reason why, or at least a contributing factor why the performance looks the way that it does, is that there's just not a lot of companies within those particular NAICS codes or performance codes to perform that work. Even still, purchasing departments have priorities in terms of making sure, again, equal and equitable access. When we look at some of the priorities you all are entering into this calendar year with, can you describe what some of those priorities are, Joe or John?
For us, our priority has been to expand our vendor base and also to make sure that it's more reflective of the demographics of our community. As you can see by the figures, we feel like it could be a lot better in representation of minorities, in minority businesses. So we've been participating in quite a few of the outreach programs. John has been very instrumental, and I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself, but with the DBE, MBE steering committee that he's done for several years. And it's been a very nice program to help us all try to focus on how do we reach out to this community? How do we promote ourselves? How do we get them to promote themselves so that they can get a larger share of the pie? So we're just doing at the county, we're really just looking for ways that we can do that. And by having ourselves out there, also outreach and having the vendors come to us and say, how do you do business with the county? And we want to be able to share that information with them.
Thank you for that. And yes, you sure did. That was a wonderful lead in to John's work leading that WBE and DBE steering committee. John, tell us about that committee, its purpose, and why you lead it.
So the main purpose is really to do exactly what Joe said, really increase the outreach, really determine where we're at now and where we need to be, what different things do we need to be doing. We're looking at different business mentoring concepts, ways to gain outreach, talking about ways, because it's very difficult with the different, very large government entities in Wichita to determine how to really reach out to those purchasing departments, get into the system, their financial systems, supplier-based systems, and navigate each of those different systems because they're very different. So we've talked about a lot of those different things. The way I ended up there, this was actually developed by my predecessor, the prior Director of Operations for Wichita Public Schools, Darren Busey. And he developed the program, pulled the team together, and really sustained it. And then in his retirement, I've helped continue that work along with my boss, my current boss, the current Director of Operations, Fabian Armendariz. And just trying to continue the work, really look at what else we need to be doing, and really figure out where our holes are at, challenge ourselves, and then really move forward and figure out what the future holds.
I appreciate that his story there as well. Many people are familiar who follow supplier diversity with Darren Busey's work. And so again, the fact that it continues on in this regard is quite significant. When we think about this conversation, it typically does involve government entities. And so why Mary Shannon? Why nonprofit? Why do we have a representative from Kansas Big Brothers Big Sisters on this particular event? Mary and I had an opportunity to converse about some of the expansion that is happening, and what she is going to share with you all through this convening tonight is critically essential because it highlights the point that supplier diversity is all of our work, not just government entities. So Mary, can you share a little bit about what is happening with your organization and how you fit into the work and the role of supplier diversity?
Yeah, we have, I mean, when you take a look at our budget, it is nothing compared to the city or county or USC 259. For us, it was really leaning all the way into the lens of who are we, what is our mission, and when are we finally going to get real with ourselves, right? And as I mentioned earlier, really broaching that conversation of what is equity. And so we as an organization challenged ourselves to step a little bit out of ignorance and to learn a little bit about what that looked like. And as we did research, you know, on the heels of May 25th of 2020, the 2 months after George Floyd's murder, there was a 7,000% increase in Google searches, for example, of Black-owned businesses. Then August of 2020 comes and the numbers begin to decline rapidly, right? The same thing happened where you'll see a little bit of a spike around Juneteenth or Martin Luther King Day, and then it just levels off. One of the things that we are really convicted of as an organization is that no matter what change is, you know, what the change represents, we know for our organization that change isn't change until we embrace it and it is a part of our culture. It is absolutely culturalized. And so in that sense, when, what is it, 0.06%, actually, I'm sorry, less than 1% of all revenue in the US, representing a population of 14% of our population, is only generated, that's just such a tiny, less than 1% fraction generated by Black-owned businesses. We have a problem. And so for us, with the funding that we have, that we get from our donors, we just decided that if we're going to be a community organization, then we need to be a community organization. And it's not just about our program that we serve, but about community connection. And when we talk about the future of our kids, it's not just the future for them, you know, 3 years from now or 5 years from now, but we hope that our graduates become Black business owners and entrepreneurs and the next CEOs and executives, right? So we're in the process of renovating a pretty awesome space in Delano. And the construction company had the conversation with us to say, who are your preferred vendors? And I said, I don't really know who the preferred vendors are, but here's what it is. They need to be Black or female owned. That's it. So it's not just we want bids from, it's this is what we need. So get to work. And they said, okay. So what I love about that is we can be brave enough to lean into it and to say what it is we want and to declare it. And they were awesome enough to say, got it, let's go. So that's one of the few initiatives that we have going on. That's a bit more of an expensive lift. It's a pretty hefty lift for us as a nonprofit, but we want to expand that into really all of our purchasing opportunities throughout the state. We have a lot of purchasing ops, even as a nonprofit. And how do we do that, right? How do we build community connection? How do we lean all the way in instead of just being about, we're going to serve our little mission? Our mission needs to be more global than that.
Thank you very much for sharing that with our listeners. When I heard that, it reinforced that it's everyone's work. If you are purchasing, if you are an organization, an entity that is making a purchase, then supplier diversity is part of your work and your role. But oftentimes we hear it's too difficult. Where are the contractors? They're not capable, they're not qualified. There's a lot of questions around making an ask like that. What has been some of your experiences thus far, even having made that ask in terms of your renovation and your build?
So one of the questions was from the construction company. They said, well, there are very few vendors in some of these capacities. And I said, well, sounds like we need to find them. And they were gracious enough to start making contacts and reaching out. So one of the requests that I have, one of the things that I would love to see, and I'm sure it already exists, right? But is a platform where someone like me who has the ability on behalf of an organization to seek out vendors. And I want to do that in a very meaningful, purposeful, intentional way where I can go and I can look up a database and I can see some reviews and I can look it up based upon whatever it is that we're needing and be able to reach out to them without having to really pound the pavement, which we had to do quite a bit.
Thank you for that. Is there a list, Darrius? We get that all the time. We just want the list. Talk about your experience with that question. Where's the list? And in working with minority contractors as your company does.
Yeah, well, there are several lists, and most of them are proprietary when they're with private companies, right? And so a lot of them don't share that. And there's a reason why private companies, specifically maybe construction companies, don't share that all the time. There's a concern about their suppliers they utilize and getting stretched really thin, between projects. And so, and of course, there's a reason why they say, hey, they're a good supplier, want to keep them. They need them to support their organizations. But in the public domain, you can easily go to things like the state Department of Commerce DBE list, which is a list of disadvantaged business enterprises that covers women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses as well, and majority-owned businesses that are underneath a certain net worth. So it really is more equitable than some of the other lists that are out there. And it's open to the public, and you can control F and search in there and look for different companies. The city of Wichita, they've improved their system, and they have a way for people to be able to search and get information about these companies, and they talk about their designations. Also, there are things like the SBA's Dynamic Small Business System, which has access to vendors all across the country. But again, these are vendors who are specifically inside of a government database. The Create campaign has began to create a directory of businesses years ago to provide more of that opportunity in the non-public domain to see who these other contractors are. So it's a work in progress. Some of the lists exist, but by no means should we think that if you get to one list that this encapsulate all of the capacity and capability of these different diverse vendors.
And I appreciate you giving that context. But if we drill down in the list as well, you mentioned the state's list, the Kansas Department of Commerce's Office of Minority and Women Suppliers. I often reference this data point. At any given time in the past 3 years that I've searched, when we look specifically at African-American businesses that are listed on that, the number has never risen above 16. And so that speaks to the other side of some of the issues with contracting. There's hesitancy. There are a number of lists. And so when you're taking time to fill out your vendor information in one database, it may not reach multiple databases. So it's duplicative in efforts. And there's a number of issues in terms of efficiencies and streamlining. And then once you get into those systems, then maintaining the information, updating it. Your certifications expire, you could get booted out. As we're looking at all of these issues, I'd love to open up the virtual mic to anyone to respond to this, be it through the DBE, the WBE, DBE steering committee, through the county, through Darrius, your work, even Mary. What needs to happen to make this less manual and more efficient? Less manual, more efficient. What are the opportunities there?
I was just going to throw something out there. So this is neither manual nor is it efficient. It's just kind of the way that we as nonprofits have to do business, which is, from my lens, what I could do better to support Black businesses is by being more relational. And what I mean by that is, it's not just being more relational with Black-owned business owners, but it's also being very relational with my counterparts who have purchasing power to say, hey, this person did a great job for us, because we know that word of mouth travels, right? So for me, I have very little impact to really do anything of measure when it comes to efficiencies or any of those pieces, but I can be a conduit by being a very loud referral base, because we do that all the time, right? I just don't hear a lot of that traction in social media or about town. I just don't hear it as a conversation nearly as much as it should be to impact genuine, authentic change.
I know what the county, in working with Wichita Public Schools, the city, and the DBE, MBE policy meetings, prior to the pandemic, we were brainstorming the ability for us to create a central repository for applications by disadvantaged minority businesses. So in other words, instead of having to come into the city and the county and the public schools and put separate applications in, we were trying to find a central place where they could go, a hub, enter it in, and that information be disseminated to each of the agencies. So when the pandemic hit, it really kind of put everything on hold. But John and myself and Chris Hazlett and others, we've talked about, we need to get back to that. There are some technological obstacles to that, of course, because you have disparate systems and trying to find something that's going to be compatible that feeds into all those systems. But that, and as well as finding central locations, whether it be a library or utilizing a mall where you can have a kiosk that makes it easy for some of the businesses to go to, because sometimes they don't have the technology, may not have internet access. It gets as simple as that. And so finding a way to make it easier for these businesses to participate so they don't have to repeat the same process, because their time's valuable, and we're just trying to maximize the efforts that are being put in so that we can all benefit from it. So we're going to probably re-examine, get back to that. Maybe John has some comments on that, but that's something that we're going to refocus on.
Yeah, I think Joe. I actually put a hold on that as well with the update to our financial system. Now that we're finally there, we're up and running. That's actually something that's high on my priority list to start really starting to work through and get that central repository. But you nailed it. It's also those kiosks, things that are in centralized locations that people can get to and actually use should they not have access to it. It's the marketing of whatever website we were to land on that has that central repository to make sure people are aware of where to go to, how to get in there, having those instructions on how to get the appropriate information in there that will line up with each of our systems, and in essence make their lives that much easier working with each of our different entities.
Yeah, this efficiency conversation definitely goes both ways as well. There are things that minority entrepreneurs need to do in order to take greatest advantage, greatest participation in the opportunities that are presented to them. Darrius, you have participated in a number of training sessions with Burns & McDonnell, Wichita Water Partners, who are doing the Northwest facility. You, in fact, have another training coming up as well that we'll make sure to mention. But you have shared that the attendance could be better. The participation could be better. Can you just talk about what it's been like for you from that vantage point?
Yeah, so I believe that our organization, just over our years of working in the space, we've put together quite a comprehensive list of our regional area, that states, even surrounding Kansas, of diverse businesses, utilizing multiple databases, including private databases that customers, clients, and partners have given to us to help with the work that we do. Even to look at that, we have the list and we have the people, but when I send these contacts to other larger institutions or private companies, sometimes we don't see that same level of response. And that is something that is not the fault of the institutions that are here or that are out there. Yeah, there's a lot more connotation about what does and doesn't happen, and sometimes that doesn't actually reflect what's really going on. And that's just a big problem, is that people don't participate. I had a recent event, and I had compiled a list of at least 40 or 50 vendors in specialized construction divisions that needed to be at a meeting where there are dollars available and a company is looking to spend dollars. And we didn't have the participation that I would have liked. And that's disheartening, but in any case, one of the other things I think that really has to happen is, Christina, when we partnered with Create Campaign to do the Prosper program, one of the things we help these vendors understand is how to come up with a company cheat sheet, right? So it's like, what's the general information that every vendor registration process asks for? And we say, have that at your disposal, and so you don't have to go and worry about, it being duplicative, but you copy and paste. It's the same things that they're asking for. But also there's a part of growth in an organization where there are things that you need to have. You need to have financials. You need to at least know what were your most recent 3 years, at least, of gross revenue. If you need tax returns, you need to have those to participate in some of these certification programs. So those are some things where people need to show up a little bit better individually. But one of the other things, a challenge that I've seen, is that sometimes these businesses don't have capacity, right? And that's a big issue. But the bigger issue is that we have too many business owners and communities that are siloed, that don't understand how to leverage relationship and partnership. I remember having a meeting years and years ago when I was with the regional Regional Minority Business Development Council, and we were talking to a group of contractors, and the conversation about bonding came up. And I simply asked, in a group of minority construction companies, fairly larger ones at that time, why are you all not partnering? Why do you not joint venture, and why do you not then utilize and leverage that relationship to have greater bonding capacity? And it kind of felt on deaf ears. That you can't do anything by yourself in this world, and it's always going to take other people. So it's an ecosystem. And even though people are competitors, we partner with competitors all the time when it's for the greater good. And so those are some things that I think that really need to be addressed with suppliers and vendors, is that, hey, when institutions or companies are doing their part, you still have to show up. And if you think you can't do it by yourself, stop trying to do it by yourself. Find someone that you trust and partner with them. That's the way of the world. I mean, I'll just give you an anecdote. We have all the trouble in the world of our country with other countries. Look at our relationship with things like China and Russia and things like that. But our countries cooperate and work together every day with these same countries that we have these tiffs with. If large countries can do this work and work together, even though they have very different geopolitical stances and issues and concerns, then us as contractors, vendors, suppliers, we can find partners as well.
Well, that is a perspective for you. And that leads me into my final question before I open it up for general comments. Actually, I have a call to action to request. So my final question is this: as we talk about teaming and partnering, some of the greatest partners do include the organizations that are purchasing. Now, for government organizations, you can only do so much, because we want to make sure you're still equitable and provide equal treatment and things. And so with those parameters in mind, and then I'll circle to you, Mary, but with those parameters in mind, what recommendations would you, Joe and John, give to minority contractors who are looking to deepen or create a relationship with your departments?
So yeah, thanks, Christina. That's always kind of the catch-22 working with us, isn't it? So we've got to be very careful. I see a lot of different circumstances as we move closer to actual projects, where a lot of businesses don't understand where us as government entities have to shut down and focus on the fair and the process and things like that. Really, I think my recommendation, I don't know if Joe would differ from me on this, but get started early, get in our systems, have the conversations before the project is out there, because unfortunately, once that project's out there, we have to be very careful that we're providing the same information to everybody. It really just goes back to fair. You get those early conversations started. Let us know you exist. Let us know that you're interested. Then we can get you included on those opportunities. And then from there, it's up to the individual company to propose and or bid their best options and participate. That participation is really important. Whether they absolutely feel like they can compete or not, get in there and play the game, and eventually you'll win. So that's really the key to it.
Yes, I agree with that. And what we try to do at the county is based on the charter that we have, which is like our purchasing resolution, at a certain dollar threshold, we're given a little more leeway. If it's under $25,000, it's what we call an informal bid, which means a department ourselves, we can reach out and at least have 3 bids for competitiveness. And what I've told our people, our buyers, is that when we're in that situation where we have the leeway to have some discretionary say in it, reach out to at least one minority or woman-owned business when you fall into that category. Now, of course, when we get above 25,000, it's sealed bid, it's open to everyone, and we have to open that and read it into the record. But there are opportunities that we can do. And like John mentioned, I think, and Darrius too, that I've seen a lot of fear of participation. A lot of times it's like, sometimes minority vendors feel like they don't know what to do. So we reach out to them. We have a program where once a month, if you have questions or you like to walk through the process, we set aside the 3rd Thursday of the month where you can set up an appointment. We'll sit down with you now through Zoom and go through the process with you to let you know that it's not that difficult. And then, like I mentioned, we do try to target under certain dollar thresholds where we reach out to these vendors to let them know, please participate. Everyone started small. Our largest vendor started small. And so, you've got to start somewhere. And so we try our best to encourage them to please just participate. If you don't get it the first time, and we find that when they participate, even though they may not have gotten the bid, it kind of get over a certain hurdle and they think, wow, that wasn't so bad. I can do that again.
You're
So
absolutely
it's just that initial trepidation.
Just real quick, John and Joe just really hit something real big about being a salesperson or working in business development. The no is just an opportunity for people to say yes, and it's really an opportunity for you to grow. If you're not bidding the contracts and when you lose, you're not asking for a debrief if the policy allows for that, or asking for the evaluation criteria, how you did and stacked up, then you're missing a great opportunity to be able to find out where to improve. And so I know that it's time and it's resource for people to bid and it's exhausting, but sometimes it's not always about winning. Sometimes it's about getting better. And I think that business owners need to understand that every win doesn't come with dollars attached to it. And so that's just important. And John and Joe both highlighted that by talking about, hey, just participate.
That's pretty deep, Chris. That is a great summary and a great point to pull out. Mary, so we talked about how people can get in contact and the expectation of a relationship with the government entity's purchasing department. But what about with the nonprofit?
We are just very open and again, leaning all the way into doing business with minority-owned businesses, in particular, females, Hispanic, and Black, right? Black-owned businesses. And so what I would say is, first of all, get a hold of us. Like, we don't know what exists unless we know what exists, right? And we are a statewide organization. And the other piece is we have about 2,500 Kansans who are one-to-one mentors, right? We have hundreds, actually thousands of donors. We have major corporations who are partners, and we have been very fortunate to build awesome relationships and partnerships. So if you want a meeting, you're gonna get a meeting. I'm the one actually that's often pestering people like Christina, hey, can we visit? Can we meet, right? Because I can't change our behavior and I can't change our practice until I get to know what it is I need to know. And likewise, all of our stakeholders. So just reach out. Christina has all of my contact information. I'm really easy to pester, and it's not pestering at all. I welcome it. I invite it. And by the way, we're really great at giving referrals. So, you know, just seek us. Let us know what you need. Let us know how we can partner.
Thank you all. I said that I'm leaving with a call to action. We have some announcements in our presentation deck, but before we go there, I want to take a moment to offer each panelist a final opportunity to share an aha, maybe something you're taking away from this conversation, or a challenge that you would like to place upon those who are listening to this convening. We'll start with you, Joe.
I would encourage, I appreciate what Darrius, the work he's doing to reach out, to encourage courage, that you need to, that don't allow yourself to be tethered by anything you feel is restricting you, whether it's someone else's voice in your head or your own voice in your head. And it's so important. And I think Mary made a good point earlier. We talked about the George Floyd murder. The country really started thinking about social equity. Well, you know, you have to make hay when the sun shines. We need to press organizations here in Wichita to provide mentorship to minority-owned businesses. You know, a lot of times there's that fear of having competition. Well, no, you can have a collaboration. And so we want, I think it's so good that we can really push some of these, and there's some that are doing it, that take a lot of these organizations under their wing, provide them with mentorship, whether it be how to run your business. And was mentioned earlier, I think a lot of problem has been capitalization and bonding issues, financing. And Darrius has said what I thought so many times: combine, joint venture, work together, pool your resources, go to lending institutions, and let's see, can organizations go to a lending institution and say, here, we're representative of this many organizations that want to use your institution for particular bonding or whatever. What kind of rates can you give us? I mean, there's got to be leverage. And you know, no person's an island, and we've got to leverage the capabilities of the minority and women-owned businesses. It's a very formidable group of people, but we have to learn how to leverage that energy. And so I appreciate Darrius's group and what he's trying to do. And I would encourage, again, more courage.
That's a line. Thank you, Joe. Mary?
Well, first of all, to the fellow panelists, I've learned an awful lot. I feel kind of like the dummy in the room, but thanks for dropping all of your knowledge. I actually would love to meet with each of you. So yeah, that's going to happen. But what I would just say is, you know, change isn't change until it's a part of our culture and a part of our collective existence. And in that sense, yeah, for a period of a couple of months, we were better, right? And then we have gone backwards in some regard as a nation, certainly when it comes to supporting Black-owned businesses. So what I am asking for is, how can my organization be helpful? How can I be helpful? We are open. We want to do better. But in order to do that, we need to hear from you. So that's what I'm asking for. Let us hear from you, and we're here.
Thank you so much, Mary.
I guess if I was thinking in terms of any advice I could give, it would be, we're big organizations. We can be very intimidating. We've got huge projects out there, but we do have smaller dollar projects out there as well. And a lot of times it's a matter of getting in the door, participating, and performing well, and then you just start building that reputation within a large district, like speaking just of ourselves, building that reputation within the district to where you're gaining those bigger jobs, getting those bigger opportunities, things like that. I do want to share an aha. Darrius said something that I've never really thought about. We gear our bids or proposals toward one company. I mean, the way it's worded, we're either going to award to one company or multiple. We've never really considered advertising the possibility that we would support a partnership. So I don't know that it's really considered as a possibility whenever you look at the different negotiations we put out there. So I'm going to think about how to word that in our negotiations so that maybe it's a little more clear that, hey, if you partner with other companies and you can perform the job, that may actually offer some different opportunities. So I'm definitely going to give that some thought.
That's incredible. Thank you for that, for sharing that breakthrough. That's incredible. Thank you for that, for sharing that breakthrough. Darrius?
I appreciate everybody being here and the expertise they're bringing to the table. One of the things that I just want to highlight is one thing that everyone here has echoed, and Mary kind of brought it up first, was about being more relational. People do business with people they like to do business with. And for all the barriers that exist among us as people, I mean, there's so many more commonalities, and there is a human aspect to this. And people have to remember that even though there are systems or these organizations, it's people that work in these organizations. I say give people grace. I say give people an opportunity to expand their bandwidth as well, the same that you expect that people give you. So definitely reach out. What does it hurt to have a conversation, to ask, to quote unquote, to look dumb, to not be the brightest person in the room, or to be afraid? Joe said, encourage. I just really hope that everyone shows up. Everybody show up, not just the vendors, not just the buyers, the procurement, everybody show up. You have to show up every day if it's important to you. If it's important to your community, if it's important to our city, our state, our county, then you have to show up, and you have to be open-minded, and you really have to think about what's the greater good for all of us, especially as Kansans. And I think that when we think in those terms, we can make a lot more progress.
That's right. That's right. This is just so inspiring to hear from each and every one of you all, but we know it's not just about being inspired, it's about taking action. We invite and encourage all of you to join us on March 7th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. again on Zoom, where we will talk about how to do business with. We will also have a virtual matchmaker and an event that we are calling Learn and Lead. We are putting this on in partnership with the Wichita Regional Chamber of Commerce and Burns and McDonnell. And we have a number of wonderful presenters who are going to talk about the opportunities to actually get into their vendor systems, and they are providing purchasing professionals for minority contractors to connect with in that same virtual convening. There will be participants including Valerie from Evergy, who says for over 35 years, Evergy is focused on training, mentoring, and growing diverse suppliers to make our community stronger. We have McCown Gordon's Mitch Benz. McCown Gordon is a wonderful partner with Create Campaign as well, and they are walking their talk. They strongly believe in maintaining a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion across every level of the organization. In fact, a point of pride that they point out is that McCown Gordon has a high success of achieving participation goals and is leading the groundwork in the Wichita construction market. They were able to recently award 33.8% participation of the construction work on Chester I. Lewis Park to minority, women, and disadvantaged business enterprise companies. Also joining us again, a collaborator on this event, Ricky Ellison from the Wichita Regional Chamber of Commerce. And Ricky says supplier diversity goes beyond a corporate social responsibility and really comes down to the simple fact that it makes good business sense. Yes, indeed, we completely agree with that, Ricky. And also another event collaborator, Ron Coker, Burns and McDonald, who says helping to further enrich and develop a strong entrepreneurial environment is key to expanding Wichita's diverse business community. Again, a rising tide lifts all boats. As we look at additional efforts, Kansas Business Services, who again you heard from Darrius Wright today, they will be hosting an emerging business workshop with Kansas Business Services on Wednesday, March 2nd from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and it's free. You just need to register there. The event coordinators include Wichita Water Partners, and they are the construction team led by Al Barisi and also Burns McDonald, as well as again, Kansas Business Services. And from Create Campaign, we are also launching a 12-week business course that really helps minority founders to work on your business, not just in your business, in ways that allow your business to work for you by helping it become more profitable. To learn more about the Spark Community Business Academy, please visit createcampaignks.com/Spark. We are looking to kick off our cohort March 24th. We are looking to have information sessions throughout the month of February in order to get people ready for that opportunity. So there are a number of opportunities for people to invest in the knowledge of their business, as well as if you're looking for additional funds, we do want to make a plug for the Propel Small Business Loan Fund from the City of Wichita, powered by Intrust Bank. This is an opportunity for founders to borrow up to $20,000 to cover typical business expenses. You can learn more about this fund at wichita.gov/propel. We really appreciate you attending the 2022 Black Business Roundtable. Yes, the journey continues, but progress is right in reach. Continue to stay connected with Create Campaign for these and many other opportunities as we again activate urban entrepreneurs in Kansas to launch, innovate, and grow. And special thanks to our sponsors who allowed this presentation to be possible: Network Kansas, Bank of the West, and EY.